Have you ever wondered why you feel a pain you can't name? Why, even on calm days, a silent anguish seems to lurk inside? There is something in you that has never belonged only to you. An inherited shadow, a sadness that did not begin in your story, but lives in your body as if it were your own. Maybe you call it anxiety, chronic fatigue, sadness for no reason. But what if I told you that this pain, the one you carry in your chest as if it were a sentence, is not yours? It belongs to your mother. Yes, the woman who gave birth to you. The woman who may have loved you as best she could, but also gave you what she couldn't work out for herself. No, this is not an accusation. It is a key. Because understanding this changes everything. We are not talking about guilt here. We are talking about psychic transmission, emotional inheritance. And if you continue with me in this analysis, we will unravel each layer of this silent pain. We will name the UNNA, MEABL, EC. When you were in her womb, you weren't just a body in formation. You were a living receptacle of unspoken emotions. Your mother thought things, felt things, desired and feared, and you, still without words, absorbed it all. Pregnancy is not just a biological phenomenon. It is a magnetic field of affections. The womb is the first shared unconscious. Imagine a crystal glass being filled with a dark liquid, memories, traumas, frustrated dreams. What she couldn't digest, you swallowed by osmosis. There was no choice. It was part of the silent contract of pregnancy. You would also be the guardian of a story that wasn't yours. And so you were born already carrying grief that wasn't yours. The anguish that wasn't yours. The fear that wasn't yours. But it became yours. Because when an emotion finds no words, it becomes a symptom. And the symptom doesn't scream, but whispers constantly. Something is out of place. I've seen this many times in my practice. People who come in search of themselves and discover that, before they can find their own desires, they must give back what was never theirs. A man who is terrified of abandonment and only after a long time understands that this fear came from his mother, who had been abandoned by his father. A woman who cannot be a mother without guilt because she unconsciously carries her mother's remorse for having wanted to terminate a previous pregnancy. These are inherited pains. And the cruelest part? They act as if they were their own. The unconscious, you see, has no linear time. For it, what your mother experienced at age 20 can be experienced by you now, as if it were happening for the first time. We call this transgenerational transmission. But don't think of it as a curse. Think of it as a calling, a legacy that can only be broken when it is recognized. You may be trying to heal a wound that was never opened in you, but that bleeds in your soul every day. You try to be strong. You judge yourself weak for not being able to overcome it. But how can you overcome something that didn't start with you? You haven't failed. You are just carrying pain that needs to be returned to its place of origin. Not to punish, but to liberate Dot and childhood. There lies the proof of how much you were shaped by emotions you didn't understand. Your mother's crying, which you heard from your room. The tense silence at the dinner table. The way she looked at the world, all of this became a mold. And what the ID desires, the superego, shaped by these experiences, soon represses. It is in this conflict that your current suffering is born. Notice how you sabotage yourself. How you repeat patterns. How you attract relationships that hurt you in the same way. It's no coincidence. It's the return of the repressed. What was suppressed comes back in the form of a pattern. Because the psyche wants healing, and healing only comes with awareness. But why is it so difficult to realize this? Because the ego, in order to survive, builds defenses. Denial, rationalization, displacement, mechanisms that protect, but also blind. You say, This has nothing to do with my mother, but you continue to react to life as if you had to carry her burden. This is not a coincidence. It is unconscious loyalty. Yes, loyalty. A child, faced with their mother's suffering, makes an invisible pact. I'll carry this for you. They don't know that this will come at a high price, that they will grow up and feel chronic sadness, anxiety for no reason. But the pact is made, and it persists until analysis reveals it, names it, and then allows it to be undone. And if you feel a lump in your throat when you hear this, perhaps your unconscious is recognizing what your conscious mind is still trying to deny. And that's okay. We're here to look at this together, not with guilt, but with courage. Because that's the first step toward liberation, recognizing that you are not just you. You are also the battlefield of unheard generations. But there is a way out. And it starts here, by listening, by allowing yourself to feel without judgment. You no longer need to repeat your mother's pain. You don't have to continue the cycle. True love is not in suffering together, but in freeing yourself, and in freeing her too. Have you ever noticed how certain emotions settle in you as if they were natural, but when you look closely, they don't make sense with your own story? How can a child grow up carrying a feeling of abandonment if they were never abandoned? How can someone feel guilty for living their freedom if they've never done anything wrong? The answer, my dear friend, lies in an invisible truth. The human psyche is a field of transference. We don't just transfer feelings to others. We absorb them. Imagine your childhood as a silent stage, where you were both actor and spectator of a play already in progress. Before you even understood what love was, you were already loved in a specific way, with longing, fear, overload, expectation. And before you understood what fear was, you had already been pierced by your mother's fear. Not the overt fear, but the implicit fear of losing, of being betrayed, of not being enough. These emotions are like ghosts that lodge themselves in the house of childhood, and the child, sensitive as a sponge, absorbs them as if they were their own. Did you grow up feeling like you needed to save someone? Feeling like you needed to be the strong one, the responsible one, the child who never makes mistakes? Well, maybe you were your mother's unconscious attempt at healing. This happens more often than you think. When a woman has unresolved emotional wounds, abandonment, abuse, rejection, and has no space to heal them, she often projects her silent hope for redemption onto her son or daughter. Now everything will be different, she thinks. And so you are born with a secret mission, to heal her. But this mission was not chosen. It was imposed by the unconscious. And here the conflict arises. You try to live your life, but part of you is stuck in a past that is not yours. You feel guilt when you pull away, fear when you grow up, anguish when you achieve, because on some level, you fear betraying her. You fear leaving her alone with her original pain. And that fear paralyzes you. This unconscious loyalty turns into sabotage. Have you ever noticed how, when you get close to something good, a healthy relationship, professional success, unnecessary, change something inside you contracts? As if to say, be careful, you're going too far? That something is not you. It is the superego built on your mother's affections, her guilt, her fears. It's like an invisible emotional tattoo that says, don't go beyond the limits of what she could bear. But the psyche has its own way of speaking, and when it is not heard, it screams. It screams through the body, through anxiety, insomnia, recurring dreams, relationships that always fail in the same way. Because what has not been symbolized returns. It returns as a symptom, and the symptom is not the villain. It is the messenger. So when you feel that nameless pain, that ancestral weight that seems to suffocate you, stop and listen. Ask yourself, whose pain is this? Go beyond the rational. Remember moments from your childhood when your mother cried in secret. The times when she said, "I'm fine," but her body was shaking. The times when she smiled, but her eyes didn't follow. You saw more than you could understand. And that excess became trauma. Not the trauma of what happened, but of what you couldn't process. The child you were tried to make sense of your mother's suffering. You tried to protect her. And to do that, you gave up parts of yourself. The right to be lighthearted, to make mistakes, to feel anger, to have your own desires. You adapted to her. And now, as an adult, you pay the price. The price of not recognizing yourself, of living to please others, of avoiding conflict at all costs, of keeping quiet to keep the peace, even if it costs you your own. But there comes a time when the body can no longer take it, when the unconscious demands to be heard, and that time is now. Because you are here, with me, listening to these words, not by chance. Your unconscious brought you here because you are ready. Ready to give back what is not yours. Ready to say with love, "Mom, I love you, but this pain is yours. I can't carry it anymore." And no, this is not abandonment. This is differentiation. It is healthy separation. Because as long as you are mixed up in her suffering, neither of you will be free. And the most powerful thing you can do for your mother is not to suffer with her. It is to heal yourself. By doing so, you become a possible mirror, proof that it is possible to transform pain into awareness. Now, stop for a moment. Breathe, close your eyes, and imagine yourself gently returning that burden. Imagine your mother, not as an idealized figure, but as the woman she was. A woman with a history, with wounds, with choices and limitations. Look at her not with judgment, but with understanding, and say internally, "I see your pain, but now I choose to live my life. And in doing so, I also set you free." This is analysis. It is not about finding someone to blame, but about shedding light on blind spots, about transforming pain into language, trauma into narrative. Because as long as pain cannot be put into words, it repeats itself as destiny. But maybe you ask me, what if I don't remember anything traumatic? What if my mother was good, present, caring? Dots, where it gets even more subtle, and therefore deeper. Because not all inherited pain comes from harsh words or aggressive gestures. Some comes from silence, from what was not said, from what was felt but never named. It comes from contained sadness, swallowed anger, sacrificed, desire. It comes from the mask of strength, the one many mothers wear to survive. And their sensitive children perceive it beneath the armor. A child does not need to rationally understand what is happening. They feel it, and they feel it with their whole body. If your mother lived in a state of alert, you learned not to relax. If she didn't trust men, you grew up afraid to love. If she said she was fine, but you felt the tension in her skin, you learned to distrust your own intuition. And so, slowly, you absorbed beliefs, fears, ways of being in the world that weren't yours. But that came to define you. So don't think it's only the absent mother who leaves marks. An overly present mother can also imprison. A mother who lives for her child, who suffocates them with care, who puts them at the center of the universe. She often doesn't realize that she is taking away their right to be someone else, to make mistakes, to stray, to build a separate identity. Suffocating love is no less dangerous than abandonment. It's just harder to recognize. And this is where psychoanalysis comes in as a flashlight. Because the unconscious is cunning, it does not reveal itself with words, but with repetitions. You repeat relationships where you need to annul yourself. You are attracted to emotionally unavailable people. You feel guilty when you say no. You exhaust yourself trying to please others. All of these are echoes of the first relationship that shaped your emotional world. Remember, the self is a construct. It is formed in the clash between the desires of the ID, the demands of the superego, and the impositions of reality. But before that, it is shaped in the mirror of the other. And that other, in childhood, is the mother. The baby, looking into the mother's eyes, discovers that it exists. But what happens when those eyes are filled with sadness, or expectation, or guilt? He learns that, in order to be loved, he must be what she expects him to be. And so begins the abandonment of self. It is no coincidence that so many adults feel lost, purposeless, disconnected from who they are. They were trained to be what their parents, especially their mothers, needed them to be. And now, without even realizing it, they live in search of validation that was never completely given. Because a mother who suffers, even if she loves, cannot look at her child fully. She sees him through the lens of her own pain. And that hurts. It's not about judging the mother. It's about understanding the wounded child you once were, and giving them what they didn't receive: acceptance, validation, space to exist. Because as long as that inner child lives abandoned, you will continue to sabotage yourself. You will continue to attract relationships that confirm your pain. You will continue to try to be perfect to deserve love. And look, you don't have to understand everything rationally. The unconscious reveals itself in fragments, in a dream, in a slip of the tongue, in a disproportionate emotion. Sometimes tears come without warning. Anguish appears for no apparent reason. It is the return of the repressed. The psyche does not want to punish you. It wants to set you free. And for that, it needs you to listen. Listen to your body. It holds memories that your mind has forgotten. Listen to your relationships. They reflect your ghosts. Listen to your patterns. They are old scripts asking for a new version. And above all, listen to your pain. Because it is a compass. It points to the place where something was lost and needs to be rescued. You are not broken. You are weighed down by stories that are not yours. But now you have a choice. Keep repeating them or start rewriting them. And that starts with a simple but profound gesture. Asking yourself, with brutal honesty, is this feeling mine? You may cry when you ask this question. You may feel guilt, anger, relief. It doesn't matter. What matters is allowing the truth to surface, because only what is seen can be transformed. Only what is named can be reframed. And only what is embraced can finally be left behind. This is the work of analysis, digging carefully, naming courageously, transforming lovingly. And if you've made it this far, know this: you've already begun the process. Because the pain you carry may not be yours, but the healing will be. And now we come to the most sensitive point in our analysis. The moment when you realize that, in trying to save your mother from her pain, you ended up forgetting yourself. This is more common than you might think. A child who perceives their mother's fragility unconsciously tries to fill that void. They do this with forced smiles, painful silences, and exemplary behavior. They become the perfect child, or the rebel who attracts attention. Both sides of the same coin. The desire to be seen, to be needed, to heal what cannot be healed. And that is how an emotional trap is built. The child grows up believing that their value lies in being useful, in being a support, in being indispensable to others. And they carry this logic into all their relationships. They give too much of themselves, tolerate too much, expect too much. They are afraid to set boundaries, to say no, to choose themselves. Because deep down, they fear that if they leave, the other, that internalized maternal figure, will fall apart. And so the cycle repeats itself. saving others, while abandoning oneself. But there is something even deeper: identification with maternal pain. The child sees her mother suffer, does not understand why, and concludes that if she, the most important figure in the world, suffers, then suffering must be the natural state of life. And so, she internalizes suffering as her identity. They learn not to trust joy, to distrust peace, because something inside them says, "This won't last. The pain will return." Do you know that voice? The one that sabotages the good times? That creates problems when everything seems to be going well? That voice is the echo of the pain you couldn't heal, but also couldn't abandon, because it has become part of who you think you are. But the truth is that you are not that pain. You are what survived it. And now you are here, seeking to understand it, reframe it, let it go. And that is an act of immense courage, because it requires you to separate yourself psychologically from your mother, not in the sense of rejecting her, but of differentiating her, to understand that what she experienced does not have to be your destiny, that your life can be different, that your love for her does not depend on how much you suffer. And yes, you may feel guilty when you do this. Guilty for growing up, for distancing yourself, for breaking the invisible pact of shared suffering. But that guilt is the last defense mechanism. It is the last barrier between you and emotional freedom. Because true love does not require sacrifice. It flourishes in authenticity. You don't have to repeat her story. You don't have to fail in order to overcome her. You don't have to suffer to prove that you love her. The greatest gift you can give your mother and yourself is to live a full life, a life she may not have been able to live. But you can, and it starts with small gestures, saying no when necessary, choosing your own truths, listening to your desires, taking care of your body, taking care of your energy, stopping giving yourself to those who don't give back, understanding that your existence doesn't need to be justified. It is already valuable in and of itself. Take a look at your relationships. How often do you put yourself in the role of caregiver? How often do you feel like you need to sacrifice yourself? How often do you attract people who use you emotionally? All of these are repetitions of the original relationship. And each repetition is a request from your unconscious. Look at this, understand it, free yourself. If you feel like you're living in an eternal emotional déjà vu, it's no coincidence. It's structure, a psychic structure repeating unsymbolized pain. And there's only one way out: symbolize. Give words to what was experienced without language. Give meaning to what was felt as chaos. Give narrative to what was experienced as absence. And it is in this process that you rediscover yourself. Because deep down in the inherited pain, there is an authentic desire of yours, waiting to be discovered. A desire that has nothing to do with maternal expectations, family models, or inherited roles. A desire that is yours alone. And when you find it, everything changes. You start making more conscious choices. You start leaving toxic relationships. You start building a life that makes sense. Not because you are completely healed, but because you are in touch with the truth. And the truth, even if painful, is liberating. Asterisk. And you know the most beautiful thing about all this? By healing yourself, you also heal part of your mother's story. Because you show, even if unconsciously, that it is possible, that there is a way out, that love can be renewed, that pain can be transformed. You are here now, listening to this, because your time has come to look at yourself, to choose yourself, to give back what was never yours, to take what belongs to you, your body, your history, your desire. The pain you carry may have started with her, but healing starts with you. Now that you are beginning to see the fine line between what is yours and what is hers, an inevitable question arises. What do I do with all this that I now see? Because seeing hurts. Consciousness, contrary to what many people think, does not bring immediate relief. It burns. It destabilizes. It requires a psychological restructuring. It's as if the entire internal architecture needs to be rebuilt brick by brick without losing the roof that protects you. But this is also where true freedom begins, because only those who see clearly can choose autonomously. And in this process, it is common to feel anger. Anger at your mother, your father, your childhood, your life. Anger at having been burdened with things you did not ask for. This anger is often repressed out of love, because we were taught that to love is to accept everything, that to honor your parents is to forget their faults. But the psyche does not work that way. What is repressed does not disappear. It returns in the form of guilt, chronic sadness, self-sabotage. And this anger needs to be embraced, not fed, but listened to, because it is the voice of the wounded child who, out of love, has been silent for too long. No, you are not ungrateful for acknowledging what hurt you. You are honest, and only honesty heals. Saying, "I was hurt," is not an accusation. It is an acknowledgement. It is giving a name to what was suppressed. And when you do that, something magical happens. You begin to feel compassion. Not pity, not submission, real compassion. Because you realize that your mother was also a daughter, that she also carried pain that wasn't hers, that maybe she never had the chance to go through the same process. And that doesn't excuse her, but it humanizes her. And you free yourself, not through superficial forgiveness, but through a deep understanding that we are all victims of victims. It is at this point that analysis reaches its transformative power, because you are no longer stuck in the guilty or innocent binary. You are beyond that. You see the invisible chains that have bound generations. And when you see them, you can choose not to continue the cycle. You can decide that your story will not be written with the same plot, that your motherhood, your fatherhood, your emotional bonds will not be contaminated by inherited pain, because now you know. And look, this is not a linear process. There will be relapses. Days when you will feel weak, tempted to repeat yourself. Days when the old guilt will whisper that you are being selfish. But now you have tools. You have language. You have awareness. And with that, you can do something radical. Stay with yourself. Stay with your own pain, without outsourcing it, without running away, without nullifying yourself. This is the true act of emotional maturity, enduring your own helplessness. And believe me, when you can do that, everything changes. Relationships cease to be a place of salvation and become a place of encounter. You stop looking for the mother who was absent, the father who didn't come, the lap you never sat on. And you begin to be enough. And then, paradoxically, it is at that moment that you become truly available to love, because you no longer love to fill a void, but to share. Maybe you're crying right now, or feeling a tightness in your chest. Let it come. This is your unconscious moving. It is the truth finding its way out. Don't interrupt it. Don't rationalize it. Just feel it. Because the pain you feel is the pain that is falling away. And when it falls away, it gives way to what is rightfully yours, joy. Not the superficial joy of social media, but the deep feeling of being whole. Within yourself, you no longer have to carry what is not yours. You don't have to continue being anyone's emotional support. You can love your mother, but as an adult. And that means looking at her with empathy without merging, honoring her story without repeating her mistakes, being present without erasing yourself. What's more, you can now begin to build a new identity. Not one that was shaped to please, to protect, to fit in, but one that is born from your authentic desire, from what moves you, from what excites you, from what connects you to life. And that requires listening to your inner voice, silence, courage, because true desire does not shout, it whispers, and you have to be attentive to hear it. I invite you now to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what do I want, really? Not what others expect of me, not what I was taught to want, but what do I, deep down in my soul, yearn for? Perhaps the answer will come clearly. Perhaps it will come in images. Perhaps in tears, but it will come, because the unconscious knows, and it speaks when you listen. The pain you carry is not yours, but the desire that pulses within you, that is yours. And it is the seed of your new life. You have come this far. And that, in itself, is already a revolutionary act. Facing the source of pain, recognizing what is not yours, going through contradictory feelings, and not running away. This is the essence of analytical work. And now, we are faced with the final question. What to do with the freedom that arises when you stop carrying your mother's pain? First, you need to understand that psychological freedom is not the absence of conflict. On the contrary, it requires constant awareness. Freedom is the possibility of choosing how to act and no longer repeating like an automaton. Before, you were guided by invisible loyalties, inherited patterns, guilt that tied you to ancestral pain. Now, you are beginning to realize that you can live for yourself. But what does living for yourself mean? It means allowing yourself to be. It's that simple and that radical. It means recognizing your desires, your limits, your shadows. It means accepting that you are not responsible for anyone else's happiness, nor do you need to fail so that others don't feel inadequate. You didn't come into this world to fix other people's stories. You came to write your own, and writing your own story is the greatest gesture of love you can offer, including to your mother. Because by freeing yourself, you show that she could have chosen something different too. You break the mirror of repetition and open up a new path. And on that path, love no longer comes from sacrifice, but from presence. You learn to be without erasing yourself, to love without losing yourself, to care without getting sick. And here, at this very moment in our analysis, I want you to look inside yourself and ask, who am I without this pain? That question is scary, I know, because for a long time, pain was your identity. It was your companion, your place of belonging, your reason for being accepted. And letting go of that pain is also dying a little, dying to the old version of yourself. But it is only in this symbolic mourning that something new can be born. So yes, allow yourself to mourn. Cry for what you didn't experience. Grieve for what you didn't have. Honor the child you once were. But after that, choose. Choose to live as an adult. Choose to love without baggage. Choose to exist without asking for permission. You no longer need to justify yourself, or explain yourself, or be everyone else's therapist. Your commitment now is to your wholeness. And that requires saying yes to what expands you and no to what shrinks you. It requires recognizing that your energy is sacred. That your presence is not an obligation. It is a choice. That your life can no longer be an apology for being born. And maybe you're afraid of losing people by doing this. It's possible. But if someone only loves you when you're hurting, that love is blackmail. And healing requires you to walk away from what makes you sick, even if it comes in the form of affection. Because true love doesn't ask you to hurt yourself to stay. It celebrates your healing. It grows with you. And healing, my friend, is not a destination. It is an ongoing process. It is a daily decision not to betray yourself, to listen to your body, your dreams, your silences, to tell the truth, even if it makes you tremble, to stop running away from yourself, to look in the mirror and acknowledge, I am the author of my story. And if you've made it this far, know this, you've already started to rewrite it. Every word heard, every emotion felt, every memory accessed, all of this has been an act of psychic decolonization. You've started to remove from your soul what doesn't belong to you. You've started to return to its origin what weighed you down. And above all, you've started to return home, your inner home, the one that has always been there, waiting for you to truly inhabit it. And it is with this image that I conclude our analysis. You facing yourself, without the shackles of the past, without unconscious pacts, without the need to carry pain that is not yours. Just you, whole, real, capable of loving, of making mistakes, of starting over. Now, take a deep breath. Feel it, be silent, and listen to this last sentence not as advice, but as a reminder of your deepest truth. The pain you carry is not yours, but the freedom to let it go is. If this analysis touched you in some way, write in the comments, I free myself. Your truth may be the mirror of someone else's healing. Until we meet again.